something happened. I just dropped to my knees and I had this moment of seeing myself and just thinking, what happened to you? An innocent kid that was full of vitality and really wanted to see the world and stuff. I'm so grateful for that moment, but it was like an anvil dropping. It was so painful. And 2 days after that, I was in a treatment centre.
Our guest today is Paul Sculfor, the original male supermodel and 90s icon who graced the cover of multiple magazines and campaigns, including Christian Dior, Versace, Armani, and Valentino. Inspired by his own journey to sobriety, he founded the Stride Foundation and launched his podcast, This is Powerful, aimed to provide support for those facing addiction, as well as anyone helping a loved one through it. Welcome, Paul.
Hi, Paul.
That was such a lovely introduction. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nice
We
to
did
see
it.
you, girls.
Nice
to see you.
Nice to meet you. Before we start, very important question. So, you know when you fill out forms and like go to the bank or your kids' school forms and they ask you for your occupation, do you
Yeah.
write supermodel on there?
I stand behind my wife while she writes her career on there because it sounds better than mine.
What is her career?
Yeah, what's her?
Oh, she's a scientist. She's a
Oh.
lead scientist at Zoe, a nutritionist. And so she's the brains in the house.
I
So she
love
sounds
that.
better. She has more clout with her title.
Well, thank you so much. It's right now like 6 o'clock your time, 10 o'clock our time. Is that right?
Yes, 10 a.m. your time. I'm slightly jealous.
Yeah.
We'll have blue skies and we'll be going from
Dark
grey to
soon.
dark soon.
Yeah. So are you in London?
I am in London, yeah. I'm in London now and I've been here. I'm originally from London and I moved back about 10 years ago.
From where?
Oh.
From, well, 12 years ago, probably about a few blocks from where you are. And
Ah.
then I was in New York for 2 years. So I lived in LA until roughly 2010. I was there for 5 years. And then went back to New York for a couple of years before I come here. And then I lived in LA kind of between 99 and 2003.
Okay. Is that where you met your wife?
No, I met her in an incredibly dingy, dark club in London,
Oh.
which was open for one evening for a fashion event. It was not suspicious. Yeah, I was curious walking in. They did a pop-up event for a fashion event, and my wife was living in New York at the time. I just moved back.
Oh.
And we had a mutual friend. We'd never heard of each other or met each other, but we had a mutual friend that was organising the evening. So we both went and met there.
So I'm curious, she met a supermodel. Did she go and tell her friends, like, yeah, I'm dating a supermodel? And did she feel like, is this real? Do I need to be a supermodel to date a supermodel? What's the...
So when she would not like me for this, but when she was 17, she did win Mrs. Italy. So she's not she's not your typical looking scientist.
And smart.
I love this. Wait, is she Italian?
She's Italian, yes, she's from Rome.
Oh, wow.
But she was educated in London, so she sounds very, very British.
Gotcha.
Wow.
So
sounds amazing.
So did you guys both talk about each other to that mutual friend who threw the event, and then that's how you guys went? Like, how did the first date happen?
You guys might know of her. Her name's Amy Sacco. She's had bungalow number 8 in New York. Everyone knows who she is on the scene for like the hot scene in New York. Amy Sacco was a person you'd go to. And she owned Bungalow 8 where everyone would go. No phones were allowed. It was all kind of A-listers from Hollywood and models and whoever's whoever. And she had that for years. And she was a real trusted friend of people in the business. And what happened was my wife took a sabbatical, worked for a company in New York that ended up buying out Amy. And said that it's so difficult to work with her. They use different language. Contained was one of the words. and they knew Freddie was smart and spoke lots of languages and has been traveling a lot, and said, you need to work with her for us because we can't deal with her. And they got on incredibly well because Federica's my wife's name. She's a very compassionate, a naturally compassionate and honest person. And Amy's more like a kind of a real heavy New York bulldog.
Yeah.
So it was a yin and yang, and they just got on very
They
well.
complement each other, yeah.
Oh, completely. And they ended up working with each other for a year and a half before Freddie went back to finish her PhD. So that evening when we met, Amy phoned me up and said, come to this after party. And I was supposed to be one of them people that get paid to turn up to sit on a couch, which is boring, but I went anyway. And it was on Valentine's night, and I went with a friend of mine called Michael, who flew over from San Diego. And we just went out because it was Valentine's night, and we're two guys sitting in. So we said, oh,
I love
let's go to this fashion party. And then we turned up 2 hours late. Everyone was annoyed with us, and only because I was with Amy. And she's like, let's not go. So we turned up 2 hours late. I rocked up, missed all the photography, missed all the things we were paid to do. And Federica, who was running that evening, was, let's just say, she wasn't happy.
Oh my God! So she was already mad at you. She was like,
we hadn't met.
You started off on the wrong foot.
Oh my gosh!
Oh, I couldn't have been on any further on the wrong foot with her. No.
And then,
I mean, how did she? Yeah.
Well, actually, it was very interesting because she's Freddie's younger than me. She's quite younger than me, 16 years younger than I am, and she was dancing on this table and she was drinking because she was the end of her tether with that business, and she's like, I'm on the table, I'm dancing.
Yeah.
So I thought, being a sober man now, I'm like, that she's not for me. She's just not the sort of person I want to speak to. And I ended up going over there to talk to her, and she was very rude. She was so annoyed. She was so rude. She goes, don't talk to me.
Yeah, you deserved it. You deserved it. You were 2 hours late.
Her.
Okay. 100%. I totally deserved it.
Yeah.
So I sort of skulked back to my friend and said, wow, she's not nice. I'm not going to talk to her. But then I had this I've never had this before. I had this very strange pulling feeling from my chest. It sounds weird because I never experienced it. And it was literally like, I have to know who this person is. There's something there. I can't describe it, but I have to know who this person is. So I was a bit cheeky because she was drinking, I think, Patron or something. And I just said to her, this is really cheesy, by the way, so bear with me. But I said to her, what are you drinking? She said, Patron. She goes, do you want some? I said, well, I haven't had it for ages. I'd like to taste it. So she offered me the bottle, and I just went past the bottle and kissed her and said, it's quite a strong taste. And that was it.
Okay, first of all, this sounds like a rom-com scene from the very beginning.
Cheesy, I know.
It's not. I mean, that would work on me, 100%.
It is. I knew that's what he was going to do when he said, this is cheesy, and I don't drink. And I was like, he went and kissed her.
And that worked. So how did she respond to that?
Oh, well, at that time, it was fine. But as I left, I was like, do you want to go somewhere after? She said, no. I was like, okay, well, should we keep in touch and give me your number? And she said, no.
Yeah.
Like,
yes. He's like, I kissed you for nothing. What the hell?
Yeah.
That was my best move.
It was very, I'm really glad that she said that, what she did. And it was very sobering, and it was a good response. And then I never saw her for 6 weeks.
But you couldn't stop thinking about her?
Yeah, I was curious.
Gabriella, stop narrating.
I know. Sorry. Okay, I'm going to shut up. Go.
But what she did do, this is really strange. I just put Instagram on my phone, and she took a picture of both of us on my phone. She said, I can't have my number, but I'll take a picture. And she put on there, I never even read it that night, she put on there, you met the love of your life tonight.
Holy shit.
And I never read it, and I left it. But what happened, I didn't take it off my Instagram. I left it on there just for no specific reason. So when I went back to New York about 6 weeks after for a job, I just put on there, hey guys, I'm in town. Who's in town? and she
Uh-huh.
went, "Hey, you," and I was like,
Oh.
"Hey, how you doing?" So I was like, you
Oh,
know,
she's American accent. I want to get her version of the night.
it's different. It's full
I'm
of
sure.
Patron. It's completely different.
She's like, I
She'll
was
be like
minding
this,
my own business, dancing on the table, having a great
yeah.
Yeah,
time.
and then this
And this
guy
These
comes
short
in.
old
deadbeats show
man came
up
up.
2 hours later. So hold on, you get paid to show up to parties and hang out?
Sometimes still now, but it used to be a real thing in the late 90s, 2000s. Yeah, you'd get paid quite handsomely actually to turn up, send you a car, turn up. You had
Yeah.
a minimum, you had to stay a minimum though. It was a minimum of an hour or 2 hours
Yeah.
to do, the boards they have where you do pictures. I
Yes.
mean, to just do that and then sit down. So yeah,
Wow.
God.
yeah,
I'm coming
not
back like
not
my
bad.
next life as a beautiful model, and I'm just gonna just charge people to go to their parties.
I love though that that's how you guys met. And I feel like that is such a great, beautiful love story.
Okay,
And
you need to know this
yeah,
about Gabriella. She loves love stories.
I do.
Okay.
I do.
And not that I don't, but as the one who's dead inside, I usually am like, okay, whatever, you met whoever you met. But I
Oh my
love this
God, that's
story.
harsh.
It really seems like a movie, and I love this story. I think it's
It's
hilarious.
it's so
You know
great.
what's nice about it? It's authentic. And before,
Yeah.
you know what it's like with dating apps or meeting people, or
Yeah.
someone always,
Yes.
I've got this friend and I know you guys and you get on. There's all that stuff. So this was
Yeah.
completely out of the blue, not
Just so
expected.
organic and like, yeah,
Yeah,
it's really
Yeah.
fun.
yeah, which was good.
Okay, so let's now jump into it. So, first of all, you have now been sober for 20 years. So congratulations.
Yep.
Congratulations.
Thank you very
Yes.
That's
much.
incredible. Other than that one time you kissed her lips and she had Patron, but you know,
Yes. Does
Yeah,
that
that
count? I
doesn't
mean, it's
count.
just
That
start
doesn't
over
count,
again.
right?
it was a bit cheeky. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So in terms of, and we'll kind of go a little bit linearly, but um, you got into the whole modeling thing because your mom put you in a competition. Is that right?
Without
Yes,
you
been doing the
knowing, right?
research. Oh, completely about me knowing.
Yeah.
I think I was 20 at the time, and I was in hospital having my appendix out. I had appendicitis,
Oh no.
and she came in at the end of the week after the operation. I still had my stitches in, and she passed me a brown envelope and said, "Well, congratulations, you are the finalist in the competition." And I laughed and I said, "I don't do competitions.
Yeah.
Not sure what you're talking about." And she said it was a modeling competition.
Oh my
And
God.
I that was I'd been scouted a few times by some agencies before shopping in London, but it wasn't on my radar as something to do. So I wasn't sure how I got to be a finalist. But basically, they'd withered down from, I think it was however many thousands of people, down to 20 people to go for the competition. But it was on that Friday night of that week, and I was still in hospital with my stitches in my stomach.
And then she had essentially done this behind your back and then
Like, were you pissed or were you like, oh, cool?
Oh no, I was just surprised.
Okay.
My mum's not someone who writes off or sends off things.
Yeah.
She's completely private. So I don't know what it
Ah, I
was,
see.
but she's always thought of me. She's always said to me, I was a boxer through my teenage years, so I had quite a
Right.
flat nose. But she'd always say, "You're really good looking. You should be a model." And
oh,
I was like, "No, it's not for me."
you're like, thanks, mom.
Um,
I was
yeah,
like, we
yeah.
all
I'm
say
like
that to
every
our
mum says
sons.
that.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, everyone says that at the school gate. What do you mean?
Yeah.
So, but what it had on there was you would win a vacation for 2 weeks, place of your choice, and a new wardrobe. So all I could think of was, well, a new wardrobe would be nice, and a
Amazing.
vacation would be wonderful. So I basically discharged myself early and went to this
Oh my
competition in
gosh.
London.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
so, and I got there, and it was I've never seen a room full of so many beautiful people, and I was
Yeah.
honestly thinking, should I really go in there? Because these people were really, really handsome and pretty, and I was a little bit frail from having my operation, but I always had this drive in me where I'm like, let's just do it.
Yeah.
So I went in there and ended up winning, and
Oh
uh,
wow.
Penny Lancaster, Rod Stewart's wife, came third for the girls. And all I wanted was this holiday, this vacation, and the clothes.
Yeah.
And I never even got the vacation. I got the wardrobe, but that was about it.
But you won.
So I won it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
So
from
did you have to like walk and like pose and like how did you win?
I wish I had lessons from you doing that,
Yeah.
because I had
I
no
nailed it. I know.
idea. You did. That was very good. Yeah, you had to walk up. One of the judges, actually, I don't know if you know him. His name's Gary Stretch. He's done lots of movies in Hollywood. He's a British guy, was a world champion boxer, and because I was a boxer, there was a bit of a link there.
Yeah.
So I knew of him, he knew of me, and we had a little chat. And basically, yeah, you had to walk up and down. I've never felt so self-conscious in my life. And then we had to take some pictures with a photographer just to see if you are actually photogenic, because you can be good looking but not photogenic.
Right.
Yeah.
So so yeah, we did that, and I won. So it was a big surprise.
So that launched your whole life, that one competition.
Well,
No?
that did, but I didn't want to do it, and I never went back in. And they phoned me 2 months later. The owner's name was Tandy Anderson, and she's half Jamaican, half Scottish. And this woman is like a powerhouse. And she basically phoned me up and said, "What on earth are you doing?" She said, "Get your ass in here tomorrow, 1 o'clock. That's it." So I was like, okay, I like the way she talks. So I went up there. I walked in.
Yeah.
I put a really nice outfit on. I walked in. She literally looked me up and down and said, "I don't know who bothered dressing you, but you need to go shopping. So we're going shopping." And she basically, the wardrobe I bought apparently was really bad. So she went to me shopping to buy more clothes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And so she represented you?
Yeah. She owned Select Model Agency in London.
Okay.
And she represents me from there. Yeah, globally, but then we got more agencies after that. But she represents me, and she was a real matriarch, a real strong
Yeah.
woman, but she really cared about her boys. So she would talk to you in a way that probably in California you'd be like, "That's no, we're not doing that." But it was a real loving way. It was like, "You're on the team. I'm looking after you. I'm the mother hen. This is what we're
Yeah.
doing." You know.
Yeah. So do you remember what your first gig was where you really felt like you're like a legit model now?
Yeah, I do. There was two things. There was a famous magazine called The Face magazine, and in London, um, there's so many different styles and there's so many different fashions, and there's a big
Yeah.
difference between fashion and style. And you go anywhere down the West End, and you can see some incredibly stylish people that have probably never walked into a designer store, but they know exactly what they like and what they wear. So there was a magazine called The Face magazine, and they gave me an address, like like literally a map and an address, and it said, "Just turn up tomorrow at 8 o'clock." And I walked in, and there's a girl called Lisa Snowden who she spent a bit of time in LA. She's a host. She was a TV host. She was a big model, and I walked in, and she was sitting there smoking a cigarette in lingerie, and she's really tall and beautiful, and I literally walked in and sort of span around thinking, can I look? Can I not look? Can I,
But it was like
And
just so normal. She's just in her lingerie
yeah, well,
smoking.
so she'd been in the business for a couple of years. I walked in and really I just didn't know where to look. I'm like, is
The
this,
closing is that.
Yeah.
hey? Yeah,
Yeah.
literally. And yeah, I was quite innocent, and she was really welcoming. We had coffee. The photographer come, producer came, described what we was doing. Um, and that was the first time I thought, I really like this. You get paid for this. This is
Right.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think two other occasions. The one that sort of started the career was I did a British catalogue job that was shot in San Diego, and it was a 2 week production, and I really learnt my skills on that job. And I really, really, it was that point I was like, wow, this is actually, you can do this as a career.
Mm.
And at that point I thought, okay, this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
But the biggest job I did in the beginning was in New York with Bruce Weber, um, for Abercrombie and Fitch when they relaunched,
Uh-huh.
with Bridget Hall. There's loads of supermodels on the job, and that job for me was like arriving on what I would have imagined at the time being a huge movie set. Those 60 people working there. There was like 50 models. Everyone had a car service using your own RV, and
Yeah.
it was kind of a pinch me moment. And I think at that point I realized that I'm actually going to be doing good, and this
Yeah.
is a career I want to do.
When you say, for the second example, the skills that you were able to hone in on, what were some of those skills that you felt like that
Yeah,
stand
so
out?
I had no idea about modeling. I always thought it was like you only see caricature stuff of it, like
Mm.
really
Yeah.
pouncing and
Yeah,
throwing things
exactly.
around and stuff,
Hmm. Right.
and like blue steel,
Uh-huh.
and and I really learned nuances, and I learned about myself because I wasn't very self-aware prior to this, and it's a strange thing because when you really go into it, if you are really good, you know about your breathing, when to breathe, when not to breathe, your angles, and all the things people talk about.
Yeah.
But there's a bit more than that. You learn to have quite an in-depth rapport with a photographer, so you can pretty much know what he's doing and the feeling that he wants. It's all about the feeling. So most people can throw a shape, that's not difficult, but it's about the feeling, the nuance of the job. Whether you're doing an editorial catalog, what are you projecting in the clothes that you're doing?
So what launched you to become a supermodel? What was what's the distinction
I
between
have
the
no
two?
idea. I did. Um, it's a good question. It's a hard one to answer because it varies, and I think it's changed now. But when I got that title, it was in the 90s, and it was quite difficult to get. And I think it was the ability to pick and choose your jobs.
Yeah.
And I think it was the ability to communicate as well. And you, what really defined you was if you'd done campaigns, if you'd done campaigns and had your name on it, and if you'd done a fragrance,
Mm.
Mm.
and that would really differentiate that. I guess it's probably like a Hollywood actor when you get if you get an A movie and the
Yeah.
budget's really big and stuff like
Hmm.
that. Yeah.
I see.
So
And in
you,
the 90s was the high time for like supermodels, right? That was
It was
for
the sexy time.
yeah. I mean,
And what I mean by that is that it was the high time because before, first of all, before digital come in, you had to really know what you're doing because you only really had 8 shots a day. So if
mm,
you was going to produce a shoot, say you did Vogue or like Men's Vogue or whatever it was, there'd usually be a story, and the story you'd take maximum of 8 pictures a day. So everyone had to know their craft, the lighting,
yeah.
the weather, basically for
Yeah.
production, the locations, and the models had to know how the clothes work, what you're doing. And then when digital come in, that got really diluted down because you're like, well, we can do 800 shots if we want. It doesn't really matter.
wait,
So that
sorry.
there was a
Like
big shift.
I'm trying to actually understand that. So before digital, like literally just 8 shots. That's it. Like
Twenties was
think
it?
about that. That's
Yeah,
actually like I'm like
That's
wait, what?
insane.
So it was
yeah.
that's
So
crazy.
well, film was expensive. So if you did a shoot, for example, here in Europe, if you did a shoot, you'd have to fly the film back. So someone
Wow.
would be tasked to fly the film back, make sure it wasn't damaged, make sure it didn't go through the X-ray machine, make sure it was like a cargo special thing, and then take it to labs. And in London, there was an incredible amount of photography labs that was a live hustling
Mm.
business, kind of like Soho in New York, but it was full of these labs. And you would have Polaroids. So what you would do, you'd set the scene, make sure everything's in order, whether it be, tables, chairs, curtains, whatever your scenery is. You'd take a still with a Polaroid, and if the photographer's really good, you'd do just one or two, then you'd take that picture, and that would be the one image.
This
Wow.
is
Yeah.
times have changed.
That's
No
fascinating.
pressure. No, and I was going to say that added to the value of the person who was in front of the camera because it was time and money. And if you couldn't read the room and get what was wanted, then it wasn't going to happen.
Gotcha. And so that's why the supermodel was
Yeah,
then, coined, because there were a select few that could make it happen
yeah.
business-wise too.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
And I remember working with this great guy called Tien. He was the main makeup artist for Christian Dior, and then he developed his own colors. And then he asked to do his own shoots. So I remember shooting a fragrance with him called Tender Poison. It was a big thing at the time. It was up for they had like a selection of guys only in the top band to do it, and we had to. It's crazy when I think about it. We had to rest a fragrance bottle in my forehead to the female's forehead,
Oh.
and
Yeah.
not press your skin hard enough, but it had to balance, and we had to stay there for
Oh.
an hour, not moving. So it was like pretty much torture. But to do that and have the energy and the understanding, and he would literally like,
Yeah.
oh no, just move the bottle. Oh, I'm going to change the
Right.
light, and you couldn't move. Yeah, so you had to have endurance as well. It was really different.
So the female model you're modeling with, I mean, that's intense. You have to at least get along to be able to sit there for an hour with your heads attached. But
It was very intense, and yeah, you're right. You have to get on, and that. Do you know what the difference is as well? I think on set when someone's really professional, that there's no ego and attitude because you know that the reason you're there is to produce the job,
yeah,
and
Right.
yeah.
that's above everything else. So I think behind the scenes or on set that really says people that have done well
Yeah.
in the game.
Yeah.
So this was your early 20s, right?
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
actually started at 21.
Okay. So your
Um,
personal life must have been, I mean, I can't
Amazing.
imagine being, yes, in your early 20s, this is like the dream, right? You're just in this industry, you're beautiful, you're hanging out with beautiful people. Like, I mean, what was that like for you? How did things change?
It was very different from my upbringing, and
Yeah.
I was as I got into it, as I started to understand the business, I actually made a long-term plan. So I wasn't in there for fame. I was in there for a career and longevity. So a lot of people would sort of come in, burn out after 2 years, make a big bag of cash, and then leave, and that was it. But for me, I really wanted to know how do you make it for 10 years when usually
Yeah.
you last five? Like how do you do that?
Yeah.
So I'd really studied the older guys, and there was a couple of really lovely people. One he lives in LA now, John Pearson, who were at the tail end of the supermodels from the 80s to the 90s, and they were a different breed
Yeah.
of guys as well. And
Yeah.
those guys were um, they got paid so much money. I remember a guy called Marco Di Conciliis, Italian guy from Capri, did his first job, and he got paid 250,000 like 2 hours work, and they flew him in private and flew him out.
That's a lot of
And
money for back then. I mean,
oh,
Oh, yeah.
shit,
insane.
oh yeah, because you could buy, I think in '92 you could buy an apartment in Mayfair in
Yeah.
London, which would be like the Upper East Side
Wow.
for about that money. So
Oh.
it was big stuff then.
So what made you think to yourself, I'm in it for the long run? Like, it sounds like you had a good head on your shoulders. Was it someone that you saw like
No, it
explode in
was
a negative, or was it your mom, or what was the way
it
that?
it was me. It was totally in the sense of I saw my dad worked. I didn't see my dad as a kid much because he was working so hard. He'd worked 7 days a week,
Hmm.
and my mum changed her job from working in a bank in the city to work in the school so she could be around us as we was kids. She did a loving thing. My dad did a loving thing,
Yeah.
but it was tough because I didn't get to see my dad for quite some time, and and I know two people can work just as hard, but one gets rewarded a lot more than the other.
Hmm.
And when I was, I worked from the age of 13. So I did a milk round. I saved up for my milk round. That's when you deliver milk, and they used to have these old carts you deliver milk to. And I worked out if I could work for 6 months, I could buy a second-hand motorcycle,
Mm-hmm.
and then I sold that and doubled my money, and bought another one. So I was buying and selling bikes. It took a year and a half for my dad to find out. which he was really unpleased about. And then I went on to buy cars and sell things and stuff because I really didn't want to struggle.
Yeah.
Because when I was a kid, we at certain points we had like we'd have to get our clothes from like secondhand places
Yeah.
and hand me downs and stuff like that. And I didn't want to do that. So my drive, when I saw that not only could you educate yourself by traveling to all these beautiful places, meeting all these people from different cultures, different races, different demographics, I was hungry and I wanted to learn how does this work? Because I'm from London, but I'm from a part on the east side, and the mentality was pretty closed. It was about just getting a bigger car, getting a house, and whatnot. And I was like, there's got to be more to life than this. There has to be. And so I saw it as an opportunity to get out of Dodge and really educate myself in something from I love experience, so that I could experience it. Because you know, when you see a movie, everyone has their own view, don't they? And I was told a lot of stuff about places, but I wanted to experience it to see what I saw. So it couldn't have been a better sort of clash of job with time and my hunger as well for it. And for I think it was about roughly 8 years, I never stayed in one country more than 2 months.
Wow.
So I was hungry.
Yeah.
To go back to your question, it was tough to have relationships, and it was tough to keep old friends. You know,
But also tough. It sounds exhausting also, but I guess maybe like not when you're younger. So how did you have relationships? Were you like, I'm only here for 2 months, I'm out of here, this is your limit?
yeah, no,
You have
yeah, well, not as hard as that, but
here's
yeah,
a calendar, okay? And
yeah,
you
if
have a
you fit
deadline.
inside
Yeah.
January,
Yeah.
we're on. If not,
Yeah.
we were out. I think it was more innocent now. I think it was I moved to Milan pretty quickly because Milan's like a university for modeling.
Right.
When you go there, there are a number of places called their residences. So they're like apartment blocks, and they're just for models. And you get there when you started to do well. So you'd share a room with 2 people, 3 people, and when you did really well, you'd have your own place. And if you didn't make it there yet, I stayed in another place. God, it was horrendous, near the Duomo in Milan, which was awful.
That's where all the
And
ugly people are.
honestly, it was horrendous. I don't think anyone else wanted to stay there. It was so bad. So I stayed there for my first week, and I was like, I have to get out of here.
Yeah.
But you stay in residences, and it's photographers go there because they want to learn, producers go there because they want to learn. So it's like a university. And if you meet the right people that want to get the best out of what they're trying to achieve, it's a really cool place. I mean, there wasn't much to do there, but we just did fashion shows. So you did big shows for Armani, Versace, Gianfranco Ferré, Valentino, and you'd meet everyone there seasonally, and really like learn your skill.
What would you say are, if you had to like say the rules in modeling, what would you name some of the rules? And also because like your exterior is so much, that's your brand, that's what you're selling, right? So anything from like a certain weight that you had to be at and how did you achieve that? Or, I feel like I hear this a lot from women that are models, but I'd like to
Yeah.
know from more like the male perspective and the pressures that you felt and rules.
That's a very good question. They change all the time as fashion changes.
Ah, yeah.
So when I started, I was a 40, I think I was a 40 and a half, 40 chest size, and I had a 28 waist. So when I went to Milan for the shows, at that time it was oversized suits and bigger suits, and a lot of the boys from America were huge, like 42 chest, 44 chest. So my nickname was Skinny. So I had no body fat. I was really lucky because I've been training since I was a kid, for health reasons rather than aesthetic reasons. So it was great, but they used to just pin everything and put it on. So there was no There was one time when I met a photographer and he had this really big job, and the guy doing the job had an incredible body, but he had a big chest, like huge. And I wasn't like that. And he said, "How long will it take you to get this chest?"
Ah,
And I was a bit naive and cocky, and I said, "Man, 2 weeks, whatever. It'd probably take a year." But I was like, "2 weeks, and I'll do it." And he laughed at me and said, "Yeah, don't worry, you haven't got the job." Um, but after that, things changed. Where a few years on, things changed to more of a heroin chic look at the time. So it was more skinny. The bigger boys left, or you had to fit in the size. So the average size was a 28 waist to 32 for a boy. And you started to get, instead of 42, 44 chest, you started to get 40, maybe 42 chest.
wow.
Now, some of the boys are like 26-inch waist and a 36 chest, which I was 14 at the time and I had that.
Wow.
So now, as I am now, I would never fit into like
Yeah.
super fashion stuff. They'd have to make it for me. It's really gone the other way. So the rules really, there wasn't any in the 90s. You could go out all night, and you probably would do with a photographer, and rock up on set. They didn't care. Everyone smoked, everyone had coffee, everyone was doing what they
Yeah.
wanted to do, as long as you could produce the picture.
But what about um, did you find your friends in the same field having eating disorders? And, was there like this constant pressure to how, there's obviously a pressure to look a certain way, right? So how
Yeah.
do you
How
sustain
do you
that? What were
maintain
the
it? Yeah.
rules? How do you maintain it? What were
Like
the,
you're not eating chicken nuggets all day, obviously. I mean,
No, and again, it's really dependent, and
yeah.
it's dependent on your culture as well. The American guys, when they come in town, they was always bigger, always ripped, but they was always taking things to help with that,
Oh
or on
yeah.
protein shakes in the line and whatever. And the European guys were just like, "Well, I'll have a salad and a water. I won't have anything else, and
Yeah.
hopefully I'll be okay and go to the gym." So it was a different dynamic.
Yeah.
Um, you had to be at that time. You had to be under. There's two people that were over 6'4", but you had
mm,
to be 6'2" and 6 foot minimum.
wow,
So
okay.
that you have to be that. You can't be anything smaller. There's a younger guy now called Ollie Cheshire who has his own clothing line. He's about 5'10". He's the only guy I know that actually made it through their net. So you
Wow.
have to be that
Yeah.
legitimately.
Wow.
That's it, and you can't be really more than now. Older guys a bit more, but you won't work if you're more than the 42 chest. So you
Mm,
do have
Yeah.
to fit in a box. Yeah,
gotcha.
Did you at some point get frustrated with the industry despite all the fun and partying you were having?
yeah. I did a job. I did a job just before COVID, actually, in Turkey, and this girl turned up, and she was probably 19. I knew her face. Clearly worked a lot. And we sat there and I said, "Are you okay? You don't seem okay." And she goes, "I'm really tired. I don't feel great." And I said, "What's going on? Can I help you?" She goes, "No, no, I'm just on this new way of eating." I was like, "Well, what's that?" She said, "Well, my Italian agent said that I should just eat apples, drink water, smoke cigarettes, and have black coffee."
Oh,
Uh, and I
For
said,
a 19-year-old? Oh my God.
19. Yeah, which is going to cause really bad effects as she gets older.
Yes.
And I said, "How long have you been on this?" She said, "3 weeks." I was like, come and eat. Don't make yourself ill. It's not worth it,
yeah.
because
Yeah.
there's loads of other ways you can do that, but just don't do that stuff. And I felt really bad for her.
Yeah.
And I've been on jobs. I had broad shoulders. I always have had broad shoulders. And there's a
Oh,
few times
you
where,
poor thing. You poor thing.
well,
Thoughts and prayers.
listen, do you know what, Gabby? You know what's funny? You say that, and I'm really fortunate to have my shape. But I've been kicked off of so many jobs for being too broad. You
Wow.
Yeah,
wouldn't
I've been
believe it.
getting fired from being too beautiful too. It's really rough.
Stop.
I
I knew it.
experienced that every
But that, I mean, so you're saying, but really, it
There's a
was a thing,
standard,
like
yeah.
a
Yeah.
standard, and
No,
the
because
measurements. I mean,
well, in America, it's more of a thing. You have square shoulders is a good thing. It's aesthetic, but in Europe, it's different. It's not. It's not light. It's a different thing.
right.
Did you look
It,
at the American guys and say like, how did you get here? Like, was there like a competition between the European and American models?
Oh yeah, I actually shared a room with this guy called T-Roy from Texas,
Oh
and
my
this
God, T-Roy
guy
from
he
Texas.
used to wear a cowboy hat. He was a physical education teacher there, and he was the nicest. He was a lot older than me. He was the nicest guy I've ever met. He was so genuine.
Yeah.
But this guy, man, he would have. I remember in the morning, he'd get up and go, right, Paul, going for a run, and he would take one bite out of the bagel, and he'd go and run like 10K, come back, and he'd go, right, now I'm having whatever he had, and then he'd go to the gym, then he'd come back and have something else, and then he'd go and train. I'm like, you're just, is that what you do? No European guy would do that.
We like eating, America. We are
I do.
notorious for food
Excuse
intake.
me, I do.
But shifting to now you've been sober for 20 years. I wonder if you were saying that as like with photographers, like you can go party all night, but as long as they get the shot that they want, move on, right? Or with
Mhm.
this woman that's 19 and having the Apple, and clearly successful because you said you recognized her. Those are things that people do to get through it, to be able to, it's the fuel that keeps you going. And so, do you feel like you were drinking and doing drugs and in that part of that world because it was what you needed to keep doing it?
That's a really good way of putting it, and the answer to that is yes. Um, I don't blame anybody. Uh, I think if I had a mentor when I was younger, I would have done things in a different way. I wouldn't have done my career in a different way, but I would have showed up at certain things and realized that I don't need to bow down to the peer pressure. Peer pressure is a really tough thing. If you're on a set, and I can only speak from my experience, if you're on a set with 15 people, and 14 of those people are like, we've booked this restaurant, we're going to have drinks, we're doing this, we're doing that. It's really hard because it's all on relationships that you're going to be the one that says, you know what, I'm going to go to bed, it's 8:30, we're up at 6. It's difficult to do as a
Yeah.
human being,
Yeah.
especially in your 20s, because you're trying to build. People tell you, oh, don't annoy this photographer because he's really important. Make sure you get on with that stylist. So what they do, you're preset with fears that you can't break these stuff. And
Yeah.
and that's what I always say to people, younger guys who ask me questions about stuff, is that you don't have to do that because you can have such a good time with that person on that set with that day, and just say to them, listen, I can't drink because I want to look best for you, or I want to make sure I get the job, but I want to have fun in the day. You can change stuff, but I wasn't really advised on that early on. So I would feel there's different parts of the business. There's the fashion part, there's a commercial part, TV commercials, and there's a catalog part, and they're all completely separate. None of them are intertwined or related. And the fashion part is the part that I felt was a lot of pressure
Yeah.
because it was a lot of name dropping. There was a lot of people around we knew, and it was mixed with fashion and film and music, and it was wonderful. But there was always this underlying pressure that you must get on with people. You kind of got to join in if you want to do well.
Yeah.
More so than now that it's more corporate. So there's a lot more money involved from a corporation that would be like, well, we're not doing that. Where back in the day, a lot of the budget would be about personalities and
Yeah.
mingling. So
Yeah.
I definitely felt a pressure from early on. So I think if I had, it was weird because I had my head screwed on,
Yeah.
but I'd had a few traumas in my life legitimately that threw me a curveball on behavior and being around people. And had that not be then, and I think things would have been a bit different.
But
Did your
that
mom
yeah.
recognize something and say, try to tell you to like stop doing this, stop drinking as much as you are?
My mum and dad never saw a thing.
Oh, okay.
I would not even drink at sort of holidays and Christmas time and stuff like that.
Really?
Wow.
Wouldn't do it.
I
Um,
drink the most around my family. I don't know how.
yeah, I needed to, but I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't do it. I think because at one point I realized that I'd crossed that line of normality, and there wasn't enough in the room, and I'd get the flavor
Wow.
and get charged, and I didn't want to sit there sipping wine with my parents. I'd be like, yeah, music, party, whereas everybody. So I got,
Yeah.
I actually changed myself in that way. So my parents never knew. My mum had a suspicion later on when I come back from LA. She's like, "Are you depressed? Is there something wrong?"
Yeah.
And what I'd do is I'd go around to her house and I'd just lay on a sofa for like a half a day and just talk. I just wanted to be nurtured. Like I wanted the love from my
Yeah.
mum as a kid. There was something I was
Yeah.
missing.
Yeah.
So that's the only time she would ask me, "Is everything okay?" But apart from that, just, I'd just
Yeah.
be a whirlwind. I'd just fly in the house, say hi, tell them what I'm doing,
Yeah.
blah blah
Yeah.
blah, and then leave.
Yeah. We listened to your first episode of your podcast, and I feel like you did a really good job of kind of the timeline and explaining, your sobriety and how you reached that rock bottom and whatnot. So I think everybody should listen to that episode because it's actually really I found myself
Thank you.
like glued.
Yeah.
And Shannon, by the way, your producer is phenomenal. So kudos to her too.
She's great. I didn't even listen to it back, but it was one of them things where I thought, God, I've left out about 15 years of information, so
But
we might do another
yeah,
one.
it's hard to be. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you have to kind of give it in a nutshell. But
Yeah.
uh,
No, but it was well paced for 30 minutes to have
yeah,
to cover all the things that you covered.
I
Thank you
agree.
very
Yeah.
much. I'm
Um,
I'm I'm really really passionate about it. I really am about doing the podcast. So sorry, Gabriella, go on.
Yeah, no, but congratulations, because it's not, I think people think like, oh, everybody's got a podcast and, I'm going to do this. But the thing that sets you apart for your podcast is it's rooted in a very, very personal, journey and your mission, and you have this foundation. And, I think there's something that people need to connect a lot of times and feel like, oh, he's just like me, or he went through it, he got out of it. And it's important.
Mm.
So, I think it's phenomenal that you're doing it because even just one person listening, right? And you could change their life, which is all that we're trying to do in this world, I feel like, right?
No, I agree. We're really lucky. I you know, I was out there partying for 18 years. So being sober for 20 is great because I've got experience on both sides of it. Um, and our goal, I always said, is not to change the world, is but just change one person. And if one person can change in their family, that's like dropping a pebble in water. So the ripple effect of positivity is incredible. And we have had already. We're really lucky. We've got lots and lots of thousands of viewers actually, and lots of messages. And some people have given up, and we've sent them to the right place. One person we funded for our foundation to go into treatment, and we started a school program. So we're doing prevention with schools. So we do
Mm.
school talks based on a lot of things around addiction, like what you said, which is really important. That did you feel that you had to do something? So we do talks around peer pressure,
Yeah.
the reality of who's really a friend, who's not a friend,
Mm-hmm.
why you can't be a maverick and walk away, and actually everyone come with you and do something positive. And we've had some great messages, and one of our people that was on the podcast, I won't mention her name, but she's had her family come back into her life from hearing her authentically tell her truth.
Oh, wow.
So
Oh, that's
That's a
yeah,
great.
big
we're doing
deal.
good. Yeah, we're doing good.
Well,
I think the family
congratulations.
struggles are really hard when you're dealing with somebody who has addiction
Whew.
problems. And it's just, I think we all have
We
that at some point in our lives with somebody. And it's very, very difficult. So,
The numbers
Yeah.
are unbelievable. The numbers
mm,
they were 1 in 10. It's now 1 in 5 are directly uh, affected by a family member or a friend, and that's pretty unbelievable. So it's a huge subject, and what I wanted to do was to deliver something that was really sincere and authentic. I've heard some people, which is fine for some spaces, telling people what to do and how to do it, and it's all big bravado and telling war stories. And and I wanted to just do a discussion, an honest, absolutely cards on the table discussion, because I think in society now, we skip around that a lot. It's really hard to be honest with family or friends
Yeah.
because of being judged or worried about being judged. But there's something about telling someone absolutely at the core of your honesty that just shuts them down in a nice way
Yeah.
if they're a good friend, and they'll listen, and that will just change a whole thing.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to do.
What was it for you that was your rock bottom that made you, you know, be now 20 years sober? Or was it a
Mm.
couple of different ups and downs? What was that story for you?
So there was definitely, I've always been outgoing, and I've always been very curious of the world. And I'm same as you. I'm curious about people. Like, how does this work? What goes on? And I started to lose my curiosity, and I started to take my career for granted, which was unusual. And I started to separate myself from people, and I just started to lose my spark. And I knew it anyway. And I got onto this loop of just going out 3 or 4 times a week, which at the time was fashionable to go out in London and in Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday.
Right.
And but I'd gone from New York to Miami, bought a place in Miami, to get away from New York, because I thought New York was a
In
problem,
Miami,
not
yeah.
Oh,
myself.
as we do, right? The problem
100%.
is some
Yeah.
exterior, external thing. It has nothing to
Yeah.
do with me. Yeah, I just need to move.
That's right. So I didn't know that at the time. So I went to Miami because I thought there's a beach there, there's gyms, there's clubs. It's not far from New York. I'll be there. It's great. And sure enough, after a couple of meet, I met someone who parties like me. Then I introduced me to his friend, and then I was back in that train. Same thing
Yeah.
again. And then I moved to Miami. Sorry, I moved to Los Angeles because someone said to me, it was funny, it was a tarot card reader who lived.
Yes.
It's a
Oh
crazy story.
gosh, no, don't say
I,
that.
I came out of my elevator. This is how well I was. I'd just done this massive shoot in Vegas, and it was a really big job and lots of names. And I come back, and I was absolutely battered, as we say in it here. I just went out for 2 nights and flew back and walked in, and my neighbour was like, "Oh, Paul, you don't look too well. Are you okay?" I was like, "Oh, yeah, just a long night." She goes, "Oh," she said, "I can see your aura." She said, "It's definitely fragmented. Are you doing drugs?" And I was like, yeah, literally, I
Your
was like,
random neighbor.
no. She said, "Would you like a cup of tea?"
Oh
And
my
I
gosh.
thought, I'll have a cup of tea. So I went into her apartment, and
Yes.
she she said something to me which actually was true, which blew my mind. So I was like, okay, you have my attention. And she said to me, "You might need help with this drug thing going on." And I was thinking, I don't need help. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm fine.
Yeah.
And then I spent quite a few hours with her. But one thing she said was, "Oh," she said, I see your name in Hollywood lights." And she spelled my name out, and she said, "Yes, definitely something there." So that week I booked a plane ticket and went straight to Hollywood. And I was like, the club shut early. I know I'm safe there. And she said, "I'm going to make it. So I'm going there."
And that
Wow,
was
you did all that because your crazy neighbor.
Well, I was crazy because I did it.
Well,
yeah,
no,
yeah,
no, no,
yeah,
no,
that's
for
right.
sure. We're not. Yeah.
So
Oh, that's
so
hilarious.
tell me this. What did it look like before you were sober? Like like tell me the amount of drinks and drugs that was actually happening. Like in a
I,
typical
I,
night.
I don't like talking about amounts because it's really about why.
Okay.
But it would just be like champagne, and I used to drink Jack and Coke, so I never counted. I couldn't tell you, but it was, I have no idea,
Yeah.
10, 15 maybe. I really don't know. Um, but I would, until the last 6 months before my sobriety, I never drunk at home, never did drugs at home or anything like that. It was always out or other people's places and stuff.
Social.
So
Yeah.
well, it was really stretching social, but yeah. So I kind of was in denial, to be honest. But it was every 3 nights. So I would go out in the end, go all the way around the clock from whatever it was in the afternoon till the next morning, maybe 11, 10 o'clock in the morning, and then go to bed, and then wake up that night or the next day and sort of dust myself down and say, okay, I'm going to eat good food. I'll get a sunbed, go to the gym, and I'll be fine. And I'm not going to do that again. And then someone would phone me and say, oh, what are you doing? Do you want to come round? I'll be like, yeah, sure. Totally forgetting how I felt and what I wanted. And it's a really strange thing about addiction, that you almost don't forget. You do forget the bad things, but you try to recreate the first time I ever went partying, because it was amazing. And I was always subconsciously trying to recreate the first night. And that's the sad thing, I think, about addiction. But to answer your question, sorry, about my rock bottom, I think I was really tired of being tired.
Yeah.
And the phone wasn't ringing anymore. I remember seeing my agent, and she looked at me in the eye and she had a tear and she said, what happened to you? And I genuinely thought, nothing happened to me. What happened to you? You don't phone me. And she said, but the spark's gone in your eye. And I thought, that's because you don't phone me. If you phoned me, I'd be fine.
Yeah.
And that's how far blessed from reality I was. And the reality of it is, I'd lost my spark. And I really, really did. And it goes back to what I said before about, you pretty much express what you're thinking. So if you're thinking, I'm doomed, I'm exhausted, what's it all about? Then you're going to look like that as well. So the spark will go. If you're thinking, oh, this is my new little puppy, I love it very much, then the spark comes back. So you can pretty much see if someone's in trouble. And I think there was a few things, and I tried to sort myself out by changing where I live, changing how I partied, how I drunk, and going from spirits to beers, and then weak beers to white spirits, and just trying this whole thing. And nothing worked, because I'd always go back. So the last thing for me was that I'd just come back from Saint-Tropez to my apartment in London, and I swore that I'm not going to drink again. And my friend had sorry, my friend had an anniversary for his daughter that had passed at a golf club on that Friday, and a friend of mine said, oh, can you pick up some drugs, basically some cocaine? I said, no, you definitely can't do anything there. That's not on. And I don't do it anymore. And he said, oh, come on, you said that before. Can you just pick some stuff up? So I did. And as I was getting dressed, I thought I better just taste it. And that was me off and running again. I had it in my system, changed the way I thought, did all this thing, and went to drive to this venue. And but as I got on the way there, I basically had a nervous breakdown. And I stopped the car on the freeway, and I just started to smash my face against the steering wheel, and had a genuine breakdown. And the phone rang, and it was my friend, and he said, where are you? And I had all blood on my face, and I was a real mess. And I still couldn't tell the truth. I said, oh, I just had a fight with these guys in a pickup truck. I'll be there in a minute. And so I was so ashamed and embarrassed how I felt. And I went there and went straight to the bar, drank myself sober, went back to my apartment after, and carried on until 5 or 6 in the morning. And then something happened. I just dropped to my knees, and I had this moment of seeing myself and just thinking, what happened to you? What happened to this kid, this fun, loving, innocent kid that was full of vitality and really wanted to see the world and stuff? And I'm, and it was hard. It was hard. I'm so grateful for that moment, but it was like an anvil dropping. It was so painful.
Yeah.
And then after that, it's a bit of a blur, but 2 days after that, I was in the treatment center,
Oh.
and in there, I think it was maybe week 2 or 3. I decided that this is a bit heavy, by the way, so I'm happy not to tell it.
No,
Mm.
But
please do,
Yeah.
if you don't mind. I mean,
no, no, I'm cool. So I decided I was going to take my life, and it was not really emotional because I think I'd gone past that point.
Mhm.
But I made the decision, and I was happy with it. So I was tidying all my room up in there, and then the phone rang, and it was a friend of mine, and he said a couple of words. It just no one was supposed to phone the room
ugh,
for a while,
yeah.
so it was one of their moments, and he spoke to me, and I just had my life flash before my eyes. I had my nephews, my mum, my aunties, and a couple of friends, and I just thought, I can't be that person. What am I doing? And it was a strange moment. I kind of snapped out of it, went downstairs in this place, literally come through the doors like in an old saloon. I was like, right, I need to know, how does this work? What am I doing? I want to do this. And when I made that decision, my whole life changed.
Wow.
It was the weirdest thing. Like all of the fear, the denial, the desire to be someone, to go out, to do all this stuff, just completely disappeared. And all I had in front was this road of get to yourself, you know, make yourself better, get back to being who you are, or a new you. And that's literally all I did for the first year. I was fortunate enough that I didn't spend all my money like lots of people, and so I still had a place to live, and I did the rehab for 6 months,
Mm.
and I joined a little acting class because I was so broken. And weirdly, on my first scene in this acting
Yeah.
class, the teacher laughed at me and said, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, I'm pretending I'm doing like this alcohol scene." He said, "That's not how an alcoholic does it."
Oh,
I said, "How do
Oh,
you
the
know?
irony.
I've just been
Yeah.
in rehab." And he said, "Well, I'm 13 years sober." I was like, "What?"
oh,
Yeah.
wow.
So he took me
How?
aside. You can't make out. And Tom was amazing. He's a Buddhist monk, sober at the time, 13 years. Took me aside. I just melted. I just cried. I'm like, oh my God, I
Oh,
can't believe it. And he's like, he makes me emotional. He put his arm around me. He's like, "You're all right, kid. We're gonna do all right." And I stayed in there for a year. So I did that, the rehab,
Oh,
and some other things just to. I didn't
yeah.
work. I just did that to get better.
And
see,
you did it.
yeah, and I
Yeah,
get emotional because I think that like you had to be at that moment and meet that person, and those things don't just that happened for a reason, like, right? Like, and that to
I
me
think
is
it's
what.
something from the universe. Yeah,
Yeah, and Orly gets a little annoyed with me because I this is how I believe in things, and because like things will happen that I always just say it's magic. I don't know, like that's just crazy, and
yeah.
it's energy, it's what you put out. People show up when you're when you need them and when they need you. These things, I
But
think.
here's why it annoys me, because I feel like there are a lot of people who, you, Paul, specifically took that opportunity. You saw this man speaking to you. A lot of people who are addicts or whatever could have ignored him. They could have not, cried in his arms. They could have not melted. They would have just not taken that opportunity. Same thing I tell Gabrielle. I'm like, it's one thing if the universe is giving you signs. It's another thing for you to follow up and actually recognize that these people are somebody who can help you.
Right.
Because when I look back on my life, I think about there's so many people in my life that I see in hindsight were trying to help me, right? And I didn't see it. It was like, sure, the universe is like, here you go. But that doesn't mean people take that opportunity. It's not what I'm trying to say. It's not the universe. It happens, and you're just smart enough and aware enough to take advantage of it. And I think that's what happens to people who are successful, who learn that there are how to take advantage of the opportunities around them.
So I would have said the same thing a while back, but when I say about the universe, I don't mean in a woo woo way.
Yeah.
What I mean is that you do vibrate at a certain energy, and I think if at that moment you're vibrating in the same as the other person, so in other words, you're not being defensive, you're not being angry with them, you're not You don't have an internal dialogue of like, don't tell me something. At that moment, you can connect with a person just to that little moment. So I just call it the universe in the sense of it's an energetic thing. And trust me, I've missed loads of signs as well. But there are things I do believe that when you really need something or you want it and you're open to it, then you can.
That's the key, open to it.
Yeah.
I think that's the difference, right?
So would you say, because, you know, going back to the why of things, right? Let me see if I can word this the right way, but it sounded like for your career, it had gone not exactly the way that you wanted it to at that moment, because you said you were looking at your agent, you're like, I'm pissed because you're not calling me, you know? And I think that, you know, just speaking in the entertainment industry sense, right? It is a like a high and crazy success, and you know, even from like my own world, like shows that hit the zeitgeist, and you know, everyone's talking about it, and then suddenly, you know, things happen and it's not the same, and you're just like, how did this happen? Like, I was here and now I'm here, and it's really hard and humbling. And so I think one can go into a really dark place because of that, whether it's like your career defines you, or you know who you are, which you can look back and go, that's not how it should be. But there's all these different things of, I think, analyzing it. For you, was it that your career defined you and you weren't where you wanted to be, and then you hit rock bottom? Or had you always been doing, you know, like the external substances, and then it suddenly, when you were at rock bottom, it destroyed you? Or how would you try to articulate it?
That's such a good question. I would say that possibly if I was earning what I was at the, I've had three peaks in my career, by the way, but if I was earning what I was at that particular time, peaked, it's possible that I wouldn't be broken enough, because you can pay for an airbag. And what I mean by that, you can pay to go to Switzerland to be infused with new blood, vitamin, whatever your stuff, have a 2-week vacation and come back and feel better. So I think at that time for me, that it was a gift that I wasn't working. I say I wasn't working. It was literally like, I think definitely for like 4 or 5 months, because I'd come back to London and I said I didn't want to model anymore. I wanted to do some more acting stuff, and I just sat in between both. And I think that space, and a couple of jobs I didn't get, I think that really gave me the space to see, you know. And I feel really grateful that there was a couple of jobs I know I messed up and didn't get, and they were big money jobs. And that's because I didn't turn up on one of them. I've always turned up, but one I didn't turn up. And two, the other job, basically, I was not in a fit state when I went to see the people. I didn't say the right thing because I wasn't in the right mindset. And I think those two things were a blessing, because if you kind of get your own way all the time and you have everything materially, it can give you a false sense of things are okay.
Yeah.
So for me to dip down into, oh God, I didn't get that job. Oh wow, the phone's not really ringing, and that was just a perfect storm for me to go, wow, okay, what are you doing? You know?
Yeah.
So I'm curious, is your experience in that industry unique, or when you look back, there were a lot of other guys who were also struggling with drinking and drugs, who didn't turn their lives around, and you know?
Yeah, no, there's a few guys that didn't make it. There's a couple of guys I know that didn't make it, actually. I won't mention one guy's name, but I remember he'd done this huge fragrance in New York, and he'd come into the agency. He'd been in, I shouldn't laugh, but he'd been in, he'd met some guy who took him up to the Bronx. He'd been in the Bronx in some crazy crack house for 3 days. And this kid, if you saw him on an image you would never believe he'd gone there. And he came back, and I remember seeing him at the agency thinking, wow, you're in trouble. And that's the last time I saw him. no one ever see him again. Didn't work again. I don't actually know what happened to him. So it wasn't unique because there was lots and lots of photographers and people partying at the time. It was unique not to.
Yeah.
But as that moved into the 2000s, it definitely wore thin and changed. And there was probably 10 people I know that were very high up in the modeling game and were either producers or photographers that just become a clique and would party together. So it became pretty normal.
Yeah.
And I think there's probably 5 or 6 of those who are sober.
Going back to what you were saying about going to Switzerland and getting a blood transfusion, is that what you said?
Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit about that. Like, is this like a real thing that people would do?
Yeah, you can go and get a blood transfusion. You can go and get your blood cleaned. You can go and, you know, be put on drips for vitamins, for whatever, just to boost you, make you feel your best. You know, go and sit in different chambers for a couple of weeks and clean yourself out and feel better, and just go back and start again.
Wow.
But the problem with that is that you're not changing your mindset, your mentality, and you're still, you're still hanging on to this thing, this picture of yourself that being in a club or whatever age is successful and whatever. And really, that's your 20s, not really your 30s. After 30, you start thinking about what am I doing. That's just my view, anyway.
But you're still modeling, right? So, because I was going to ask about how, as you get older, right, like things change for you. But I feel like you're going strong. You look more handsome than you did when you were younger.
This lighting is really good, but thank you very much, Ollie.
I'm just saying, like, I mean, we talk about ageism in the modeling industry, but I mean,
Well, you just did a Ralph Lauren campaign, right?
I worked for them. Yeah, I didn't do their campaign. We just did stuff. I did do a shoot from actually. I was the first older guy to do their TikTok campaign. Yeah, you're right, actually. But we just did a thing down in for Goodwood Revival. But I do. Yeah, I basically, after that, what I told you, I stopped modeling for 2 years, and I thought there's no way I can go back because I just, how do you go to these places? And Donatella Versace phoned me up and said, I'm doing a fashion show. Would you come and do it? It's for an AIDS foundation. I said to her, look, I'm too nervous, if I'm honest. I don't think it would be a good idea. And she said, I'll fly you in, you'll stay with me, I'll make sure you're safe. And I used to work with Donatella a lot, and I really owe it to her because she flew me in and she sat by my side, literally, through the whole thing. Not when I was walking. I did the show, come back, and she looked after me all night, made sure I got back to my hotel, made sure I was looked after back to my house in London. And I was eternally grateful for that because that broke this fear. How would I be around these things? And she made no one on the table was drinking. She made sure it was like clear space and there was nothing staying on it. I was really grateful. So I kind of went back to work slowly. And then after, I think it was 1, 2, 3, 4 years, on my 4th year of sobriety, I got the biggest financial job I'd ever got in my whole career.
Oh, I love those types of stories, by the way. That makes me
honestly,
so happy. Yeah.
It was crazy. I was 37, I think.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't believe it. It was incredible. And it was really good. And then after that, I got more stuff and more stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, I got that. So I did this job. So it was financially the best. And then I got another fragrance, which is the hardest thing to get. So I went to New York.
Supermodel status.
Yeah, honestly. I phoned my agent Sam at Ford in New York. He's the best agent in the States. And he said, look, come over. And I said, I'm a bit nervous. Just come over. And we'll do this thing. And literally in 1 week, I got a fragrance, Louis Vuitton campaign. I got all these big campaigns. And what was the difference before, when I was younger, was I'd kind of make my chest feel a bit bigger. Like, yeah, I've got this campaign. I was so humbled. I just sat down and had a cup of tea.
Yeah.
I was like, I can't believe this.
Yeah.
And it was really, I was so grateful because I just understood the value of it then. Started work again. So I'm now, it's weird. I'm now 53 and I still work, which is bizarre to me. But I retrain as a mindset coach as well. So I coach,
Yeah.
I run my foundation, and now I am hooked to doing a podcast, just like you used to. It's I love it.
Yeah. You do
Yeah, and
everything.
yeah.
How do you even
But
have time?
and you have kids,
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
yeah, I've got two beautiful girls,
How old are they?
uh, 4 and 6.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
do you do drop off and pick up? I'm just curious how the moms react at
Carly.
uh, it would probably been different if I was in my 20s, but yeah, I do drop off and pick up, and uh, yeah, I like it actually. They don't ever say anything to me, but we do. I get on well with them. We do have a laugh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Would you say, I mean, obviously there's a lot to getting sober, but I think, and you tell me if I'm wrong, but when it's addiction, right? The word
yeah.
being an addict, an addiction. And so do you find that to be sober, you have to find that something to replace that feeling that substance or whatnot gave you? Is that the way?
That's such a good question. I I have different views on this, and I'll give you one. I was just in Ibiza and for a weekend hanging out with a friend of mine, and we went to this party. It was supposed to be a sober party, and they had bowls of uh, peyote, mushrooms, and everything. So when I was offered it, I was like, "Oh, I thought this was a sober party." And they're like,
Right.
well, kind of. It's more of an Ibiza sober party. So I was like,
Oh,
oh, okay, so what does that mean? And they're like, oh, we
right.
just don't drink, but we do everything else. I was like, yeah, that's not sobriety in my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's
when you
hilarious.
when you look at the original word of sobriety, what it means, it's real clear thinking.
Yeah.
It's being of clear mind, clear thinking, making clear decisions. So for me, it's my sobriety means absolutely abstinence based. And I realized that I used to be addicted to training. I mean,
Mm. Yeah.
since I was, if I showed you a picture since I was 13, I had like 8 packs shredded at that age,
Yeah.
all the way up until like 28, 29. But I realized it was an addiction. So it's really hard to find the balance because someone said to me, oh, yeah, you just replace this with this. And I just thought, it's okay replacing something. But when you have an addictive mind, if you're not doing it, you're thinking of it. And if you're not thinking of it, you're doing it obsessively.
Yeah.
And those two bits are bad because if you're trying to be a father, if you're trying to run a business, your mind's going to be on whatever you're addicted to. So how do you clear your mind? That was my goal was like, how do I clear that? Can you clear it? I don't know.
Yeah.
So it, I really worked hard. What I did was I stopped whatever I loved for a long period of time. And it's very difficult. I wouldn't recommend it to everyone, but I stopped the gym for a while. I stopped I stopped relationships for a year and just stayed on my own. No texting, no phoning, no anything. And
Wow.
by taking something away from your life, then you realize what you're missing or you think you're missing.
Mm.
So I did this to myself. It sounds like Paul is probably going to fall asleep in a minute. He's like,
I
listen,
no
to
no
the
no
point.
no. I'm just like admiring this willpower. I mean, it's insane.
It was probably born out of desperation, but I was like, I really wanted to know a curiosity again. How do I tick? What
Yeah.
happened? So if I take away the things I'm really love and addicted to, how will I be? Like, who am I without those things? So I went in and I took my car in, sold my car. I went down the auctions and I love cars. I'm a petrol head. And I
Yeah.
bought this old VW, the rabbit car.
Uh-huh.
I bought that and I dressed down, right? And I would drive to the traffic lights and I had the urge. Usually I'd pull right up and look at the person next to you and say hi, whatever.
You're
I
right.
would I would pull so far behind this car that no one could see me and I'd find myself trying to sink down. I'm like, what am I doing? And I realized that I was putting value on the car and what people thought of me to the point where it would become painful. I changed my behavior. So I
Yeah.
would
Yeah.
force myself to drive right up next to this car, look in this
Yeah.
really rubbish old car, and just feel what that feels like. Like, what does that feel like? And I just kept doing it, kept doing it, kept doing it until I started to get self-worth, not worth out of things I was wearing or driving. And it was very painful, but it was great because now I just, you know, I don't care. I get a bus, I get a tube, I get a
Yeah.
car, whatever it is,
Yeah.
it's gone. Like that stuff's gone. And that for me was probably one of the things that I was using on for a long time. You know, so
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
something I think it's important that immediately it's good to replace something, whether you're doing a 12-step program or something healthy, for
Hmm.
sure. It's always maybe good to fill that space. But then at one point, you don't want to be addicted to anything because
Yeah.
your behavior and thought process is the same.
Yeah, you have to hang your hat on that. But I love that you
Yeah.
put yourself through these like different exercises, and
Yeah.
there's like this thing that's going around right now that says, you know, put your challenge yourself, put yourself in uncomfortable situations to help you grow.
Yeah.
And it's like when next time you go to the grocery store, ask the person behind you to buy your groceries for you. And obviously they're going to say no, right?
Yeah.
But you have to find the courage and just step outside the box. And
It's true. And it's funny because over here, people are so uh, more reserved than in the States.
right.
So even saying hi in the supermarket would literally be the same as, can you buy my
Yes,
groceries?
that's so true. Actually, you're so
Oh my
right.
God, you would get tortured at Trader Joe's here, Paul,
Yeah.
because the cashiers are trained to talk to you and have a
Yes.
conversation. How's your weekend? What are you doing? It's like, please kill me. I'm just here for some tomatoes. Just go.
Exactly. You don't need to do that, mate. It's okay.
Oh
Yeah,
my
yeah.
God.
It's like, and I feel bad for them. I'm like, you know, really, like, just I know it's like you're already doing your job, and then on top of that, you have to like pretend to love everybody that comes through
Which
the
is even
grocery store.
harder than
Exactly.
doing a job. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to go into rapid fire questions. Are you ready, Paul?
No, I'm definitely not ready for that part.
That's perfect.
I
That's
think
how
you're,
we like them.
I think you're going to do great. Okay, here we go. Do you wear sunblock?
Oh no. No.
You
What?
don't. What?
No.
Oh, I thought that was gonna go in a way different direction.
Never. Ever. If I'm in Italy with my wife, she'll put on some really organic thing on the end of my nose. But I love the sun. I think it's really healthy.
Oh, okay. All right.
That.
Yeah.
Look at that. All
Sorry.
right.
No,
Um, do you have a favorite pen?
Yes, I do. It's this Mont Blanc pen.
Oh, it's a
I
fancy.
truly
It's a fancy one. Is it in here?
Oh my God.
Gabriella, he's a
That's this one.
supermodel. Okay, he has standards.
I know,
How
right?
dare you?
I'm looking
Yeah,
at my
this is my
pens.
favorite Mont Blanc pen. There you go. If you can see it. There.
There it is.
Writes very nicely.
My favorite pen is one that I stole from like a doctor's office on
Yeah,
signing
exactly.
forms.
The
Yeah.
smooth. Yeah.
It's good. Take it.
Borrowed for a long time.
Do you have daily rituals?
Yes, I do. You mean beauty rituals or rituals looking after myself?
Looking after yourself.
Yeah, I do. I'll do, it's difficult with the kids, but I'll get up
Mhm.
before the kids and I'll just read a positive uh, quote or affirmation, not a woo-woo one, like a real sturdy old
Yeah.
Socrates or something like that. And then I will meditate for 5 minutes and try to have at least frictional day as possible.
I love that.
Mhm.
And I love that it's just 5 minutes of meditation because I
That's
can't.
doable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you're inspiring me, so it's good. Okay,
Yeah.
team Jennifer or Ben?
Oh, that's an American thing, isn't it? I have no idea. Oh
I
my
was
God,
just
I
gonna
don't
say, I'm
read
like,
all the
do
things.
they have Benifer in the UK?
We don't have it, but I obviously know because I lived in LA. Oh my God, as friends or what? What are we doing?
Yeah,
Look, we asked the important questions
yeah,
here,
I
Paul.
feel
She's
like
beautiful. I'll go with Jen.
yeah.
Okay, there we go.
One skincare product you swear by.
Not sunblock.
I think, which is probably very odd for you. You can laugh at this. Tom Ford does it as an eyebrow pencil for men.
Oh,
That's interesting.
I
Okay.
would wear that over sunblock any day. Look, my eyebrows go really thin at the end. I've got a few scars there, but they go thin. And a lot of guys over 40, they start to go thin. You'll notice it now. So you can just kind of make it the same.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Do you wear Crocs?
No, I wear
Okay, thank
Birkenstocks.
God. That's one notch above Crocs. That's fine.
I'm glad
That's
it's one
fine.
notch above. Well, over here at the moment, it will come to LA, but over here at the moment, it's very cool to wear Crocs. Like you don't care. That kind of
Right.
look.
Oh,
Got
okay.
it.
Like you're
Yeah.
just so good that it doesn't matter. Like you look crazy.
Apparently,
Okay.
Yeah.
apparently, yeah.
Does it annoy you more when guests are early or late to your party?
Late.
Are you always an on-time person?
Or minus that
Two,
one time when you
yeah,
showed up
minus
2
the one
hours
time
late.
it lost me. Like exactly, yeah. It cost me my career.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a really weird thing. My father's always been strict on time, and he has a 15-minute waiting thing. If you're not there in 15 minutes, you're not coming.
Mm.
Ah,
So I kind of inherited it in a weird way. So yeah, I'm on time. I think it's really important and respectful to be on time.
yep. What's something that you do that annoys your wife?
Breathe.
Read?
Breathe, breathe,
I'm
breathe.
joking. Every
I
breath
feel her.
take.
I really
I
understand
do.
her.
I
though, let me
feel
tell you.
yes.
As both married women, we get her. Yes.
Oh, I love
She gets annoyed because I'm incredibly overprotective about my kids.
Oh, that's
That's
sweet.
sweet.
Like,
That's sweet. And then tell us something we don't know.
oh, okay. I used to be a competitive trampolinist.
Oh.
So lots of ups and downs.
Oh my God, lots of your dad jokes are
Yes,
prime. They're
you.
amazing. Professional
When I was
trampolining.
hosting, honestly, when I was hosting Britain's Next Top Model, they actually it's pretty bad, but they wrote a dad book joke. They kept them all, and they wrote a book and gave it to me after.
Oh my God.
Oh, that's so good.
Do you know what the art of a dad joke is?
Oh no.
That
No.
it's not the content, like it's not what you say, but it's with the speed and self-deprecation of what you use it with. That's
Okay.
what a dad joke is.
Is that how like it starts the book? Like with this
That should be
like
the little
let me
aphorism. Yeah.
There was
Yeah.
literally, yeah.
Oh my
God, it's
God.
so good.
I
So
love
wait, did
this.
you compete like in a trampoline
Yeah, so
competition?
no, I used to be I used to be in the top 3 in my county for like 5 years.
Oh my
So like
God.
you did crazy flips and stuff? Is that it?
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
this
Well,
is
you had to do a 10-point routine. So yeah, back somersaults, pikes, tuck
Okay,
back,
wait. Okay, hold
straight
on.
backs, whatever.
I have a question. How does one realize that this is their
yes,
talent?
good
Like
question.
what
Yes.
happened?
Like you're jumping and your
Pro-
mom is like, you're not only beautiful, you're so good at jumping.
well, embarrassingly, before that, I was actually a gymnast, and
Oh.
that come around because I was someone who could not sit still. I
Ah,
literally, there was something wrong with me. I couldn't sit still. So we had a nice garden. And I would just be doing flips and somersaults and flips and somersaults just to do stuff.
yeah. Yeah.
And then Paul, where can people find you?
You can look on Instagram to find the link to our podcast. I say ours, Shannon's and mine, and the team. So that's probably the best way to find me.
And your podcast again is This is Powerful,
This is powerful with me, Paul Sculfor.
which is such a great title, by the way. Because you could be like, what's your I was telling this
Yeah,
to
she was
Orly.
telling me earlier. She's like,
I was like,
loves the title.
yeah, because it's like, what's your podcast name? This is Powerful. Oh, like powerful? Like, wait, what? Like, no,
What's
this is
powerful?
powerful.
This
What
is
is powerful? Like,
Can
it's
I
a
tell you
conversation.
quickly how it happened?
Yes.
Yeah.
I went I went to a friend's who's a really, really, really famous chef, and he said, because I was coaching, he said, "Oh my God, you should call your podcast Catwalk to Couch." And I was like, "That's actually a good idea."
Oh.
So I bought the name and blah blah blah, but it didn't sit right with me. So I was having dinner with Betty, my wife, in Dubai, in this really lovely sushi restaurant, and the dessert was this really strong lemon sorbet. So I had the sorbet and I went, "Oh my God, this is powerful." And she looked at me and went, "That's the name." So I said, "Great." And then I said, if we're going to do a production company, it'd be called Lemon Sorbet Productions. So
Oh,
that's how it came about.
oh,
That's amazing.
oh my gosh. I love this all.
Every decision you make, Paul, is just perfect.
Yes.
I thought you were going to say
Everything.
cheesy, but then
No, it's not. It's not. It's
Wait,
working. It's
Orderly,
working.
what was we had a list of, so it's tell us something we don't know, right? But we were gonna go like the Persian angle at one point,
Oh
like
yeah,
two
Persian
Persians in a
version.
Persian version, two Persians in a pod, or
Yeah,
like
two
just really just awful, And
Really
then
bad.
my husband, who's not
Who's
Persian,
not Persian?
yeah, was like, maybe you should not focus on being Persian. Maybe just expand, like
Yeah,
maybe something, and I was like,
Yeah.
Oh, that's
okay.
funny.
yeah.
It's hard to
Another
find a
white
name.
guy.
It's really hard. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
Yes.
He has no idea.
No,
Well,
but he was completely right.
He's
He's
right.
been right
He's
about
right. It's good.
everything.
Yeah,
So
yeah. There you go.
we just
Well,
won't tell him.
Oh, good.
Well, thank you so much. This was so much fun.
Yeah, thank you, Paul.
Honestly, it's been a real pleasure. I really
Good.
appreciate it.
Oh, thank
I mean,
you.
Thank you so much for listening to Tell Us Something We Don't Know. You can find us on Instagram or email us at info@tellussomethingwedon'tknow.com.